Please welcome to the stage Identiverse founder and Ping Identity chairman and CEO, Andre Durand.
Welcome, Identiterati, to ground zero for the identity movement, Identiverse 2019. It is so great to have you here today in our beautiful and very warm city of Washington, D.C. This is our 10th anniversary, and who would have thought? We started 10 years ago, just over 100 people in Keystone, Colorado. Everybody was gasping for air and asking for more water. And here we are, filling up the Washington Hilton in D.C. I am so proud and so honored to be part of this group. So this morning, I wanted to talk a little bit about the disruptions that are facing our industry and how identity can help us navigate our companies and ourselves and our customers through all of these disruptions. Last year, as you know, I talked about identity's Cambrian moment, the conditions that have given rise now to the importance of the things that you and I and everyone in this room are working on. And it is extremely, extremely important. Let's take a look at blue chip stocks circa 1995. I'm going to help you visualize what is happening and the pace of change and how it is impacting all of our businesses. Here's a select 5 or 6 companies, blue chip stocks, market cap 1995. Here's the same company, same visualization in 2019. Now let's compare these to their tech peers. Future is already here, and clearly it's eating the past faster than ever before. The opportunities around technology disruption are very, very real. So are the threats. Software is definitely eating the world. Turns out this notion of ubiquitous compute and mobility, kind of compute and bandwidth, where we're always connected and everything is smart, is appifying everything. We build apps before we build companies. We register domains before we incorporate. That should tell us something about where the world is going and how fast it's changing. So it turns out that the road to the future is nonlinear as much as we would love it to be linear. There are discontinuities in how we progress. These discontinuities are created by all the technology disruption that we can't fully predict. They happen in a flash, often without warning, but under the surface, the conditions exist for these disruptions if we know where to look, what signals to tap into. Earthquakes are unpredictable, but the conditions are well understood. 2 tectonic plates, they meet, they build pressure, friction holds them together, and ultimately they give way. We know that. But we don't yet have the sensors to fully predict the severity and the time when these things are going to give way. So if we think about how can we be prepared for disruptions, I'm going to talk a little bit about the preparedness, the conditions, how do we establish forecastability, and how does that help us determine the location, the severity, and the timing of these disruptions so that we can plan accordingly through the disruptions. And to do that, when faced with a lot of threats, we build models. So let's take a look at these models, because when we have so many threats, we got to figure out where to focus. Let me start with a few natural disasters. Start with the big asteroid. These are definitely scary. Fortunately, they don't happen often. The last one happened 66 million years ago. Created a 120-mile wide crater off the peninsula in Mexico. Killed 70% of all life on Earth. It was really bad for dinosaurs. Turned out to be really good for humans. We have 2,100 asteroids of climate impacting size. That's a kilometer or greater in size that could impact our climate, that roughly touch Earth's orbit. Fortunately, they only intersect about a half a dozen times once every million years. So I'm going to live with those odds. Highly severe, but doesn't happen very often. Let's switch gears to tornadoes. These things touch down all the time, especially if you're living in Tornado Alley. We don't have very good forecastability. We know roughly where tornadoes could touch down, but we only get about 13 minutes of warning when they do. We've had 50 F5 tornadoes in the US since 1950. The biggest ones are definitely scary, mile wide, 50 miles long. They can last upwards of an hour. So the conditions are well known. Warm air meets a cold front, creates an area where this disturbance or disruption could happen. But they're not hugely deadly in the grand scheme of things because they're highly localized. Tropical storms, on the other hand, kind of like a big spread out tornado, up to 500 miles wide. They can do a lot of damage, but we get a lot of warning. We get 36 hours worth of warning. So we can see these things coming. Obviously, we can't up and move our house, but we can definitely move and get out of the way. And that kind of gives way to the real disruptions that happen, hurricanes. These things are definitely the real deal. They are big, they are scary, and they are dangerous. $1 trillion worth of damage in the US in the last 50 years. They're severe because they bring storm surge and a lot of water. We get dozens of them per year. We typically have about 4 of them, major hurricanes in the US each year that kind of make landfall. Climate change, obviously, is predicted to make these more severe and more frequent, which leads me to the ultimate severe and forecastable disruption, climate change. I've come to appreciate that if we can burn it, we will burn it, and we are burning it. We are likely to burn 4 billion years of stored up solar energy by way of fossil fuels, probably in the span of 200-300 years. That will have an impact. The only question is, obviously, are we the frog? Don't know. Hope not. Hope not for future generations. But I'm not here to talk about frogs or climate change or anything political, actually, in our capital. I am here to talk about disruptions of a technology nature, the things that are significant and forecastable that we can actually do something about. So where to focus? Where to buy insurance? Where to grin and bear it? Let's go up into that upper right-hand corner and look at some of the technology which is impacting us. All of these are significant different ways. I don't have time to cover all of them this morning. There are some really big ones. 5G down there, I don't know that I have all these in the right location, so all you scientists out there that are looking at this, don't stare too closely. I'm going to focus on the 5 things that I think are not going to change in the foreseeable future. Obviously, there's new technology hitting this chart all the time. I want to talk about AI, the speed of innovation, customer experience, privacy and compliance, and the disappearing perimeter. These are all things that the identity industry can do something about, where we have a say and a word in how the world evolves and how we can steer our companies through these disruptions and become successful and winners. So let me start with faster innovation, faster disruptions, the speed of innovation. Airlines took 64 years to get to their first 50 million users. Pokemon took 19 days. Think about that for a second. It's hard to keep pace with new technology. And if you are a large, established company, we are definitely adding new technology faster than we are getting rid of yesterday's technology. And it's creating this multi-generational IT tax, this drag on our companies that's keeping us progressing forward at the pace that we need to have right now. Next up, everything's getting smarter. This is the real deal, especially since I believe we're still in the industrial era of identity and security. A lot of what we do is manual. A lot of our policies are manual and our controls are manual. That will have to change. There's just too many signals. Things are moving too fast and the threats are coming at us too fast for us to do everything manually. So I do believe that we're kind of in the analog days and we will and are going to progress through that fairly quickly. AI does promise to change an awful lot. And at the same time that things are getting smarter, our users are becoming more discerning. They're becoming more fickle, if you will. So user experience really matters. I'm going to spend a few moments on that later as well. The regulators have found us. None of us are going to escape. We went from privacy by default to identified by default. So much so that regulation now is stepping in and will act as a governor for the pace with which Our identity attributes, the information about us, the private information about us is shared. So that is here to stay, I do believe. And then obviously our boundaries are shifting. They're kind of blurring. They're giving way. While secure networks still matter, they matter less today than they did before. Zero trust is redefining how we think about what we trust and identity. Let's build a trusted identity infrastructure that allows users on any device, on any network, to go wherever they want, and for us to know that it's secure and that we are giving appropriate access. That is an identity statement. That is why we're here. And this one really captures a secular shift from traditional perimeter thinking now to a much more dynamic identity-controlled or identity control plane environment. So let me talk about number one here, speed of innovation and the disruption and the opportunity that it creates for all of our businesses. Innovation is great if you're the disruptor. It's not so great if you're the disruptee. So the hard thing about success, obviously, in becoming large, is that now you have something to lose. You can't just jump on the new bandwagon and the disruption and give up everything that has made you successful to date. And so we have to manage through these changes, figure out what to incorporate, what to leave behind, what can we allow to atrophy as we make the shift. So obviously, when this disruption happens, we got to keep flying the plane. That's really what it boils down to. We got to keep running the business, and we got to figure out a way to change the wings and the engine and not lose any altitude, because the people in the C-suite don't want to hear it. Make it work. Get us to where we need to go, and don't lose any altitude. So there is a universal strategy, I think, that will help us navigate this. It is about maintaining agility in our businesses, and you have to fight to maintain agility. Every small decision you make adds up to a future drag and a future tax. So what are the things we can do? Number one, you guys all know this, we have got to mandate standards, and fortunately, we are in a time and place now to where we can do that. We have several very mature standards right now, and we need to keep pressing both vendors and our partners to adhere to them. So we obviously need to be using SAML, OAuth, OpenID Connect. Those are mainstream, they are mature, and we can deploy them ubiquitously throughout our companies. We have emerging standards like SCIM because we still have not tackled the identity management and the provisioning side of this equation. It is still a manual and a burden for our companies, and we need to keep pressing. Or let's come up with a new one and a better one. There you have it. Either deploy it, or let's make a better one, because we need to solve that use case. We've got things up here like PSD2 and open banking. I wouldn't normally put those directly into the identity standards, but they are having an impact. They do leverage identity for security. They're doing it in the payments industry. I have it up there because I think secure open APIs to drive innovation in verticals is going to happen in every industry. We will have open banking go to open government, go open health, open energy. Open business is coming, and it's going to be driven by APIs and the accessibility of information and standards in industries to enable use cases. So that's the reason I think it's important. FIDO2 is a really big deal. I think this is going to create a renaissance period for authentication. I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. SecEvent's a new one that my team put on there recently. So we have all this intelligence, and we're going to need standard ways to share signals. SecEvent is attempting to create standards for how we share signals around threats and opportunities both. So number one, leverage standards. Number two, leverage APIs. APIs are the new connective tissue of the internet. Of 1,000 enterprises interviewed recently, 55% said APIs are critical to their business. They afford us rapid accessibility of information and services, and they allow for reuse. So it's about the foundation of the house and getting that right. And if we build upon secure APIs, we are going to be able to innovate faster than ever before. So two is leverage APIs. Now, if we're going to expose everything through APIs, data and services, we sure as hell better protect them. OAuth is one way to do it. That's the keys that allow us in. We are going to have to do more than that. They are the front door to everything now in the future. So I do believe that we will leverage intelligence to monitor the traffic of APIs so that we can secure them. All right, cloud is number 3. Cloud deployment now represents 22% of all enterprise workloads. But if you think about how to prepare for that within your organization, I believe going all in on a single cloud provider is the new lock-in. So how do you prepare for a multi-cloud world where you can take advantage of new services being offered by the cloud platforms and the cloud providers? I believe that identity is the control plane that will give you the flexibility to choose. So that's going to be extremely, extremely important. So think about standards, APIs, leveraging cloud, in particular leveraging multiple clouds and hybrid IT, because that's just our reality. How do you do that? Identity is the control plane for that. Number 2, customer experience. It's the new eye of the storm. In some senses, it's the calm of the storm, because I believe it's universal and it will be persistent for sure. It's easy to love a brand when a brand makes it easy. Every click matters. I've told you that before. And it's showing up in consumer behavior. They will stay with you if they like the experience, and they will leave you if they don't. It's that simple. Never underestimate the seduction of simplicity. Extremely important. If you don't have UX teams, you need one. Full stop. So with regards to the identity experience today, we've got a lot of friction in our daily lives. And it's almost become like rush hour traffic. Like we put up with it, but we don't like it. It's just kind of status quo. It's our job as an industry to make this identity friction go away, to provide a good identity experience and not a frictionful identity experience. These are poor experiences today. You guys all live them day in and day out. I think as an industry, we can definitely do better. Great experiences are fast and they are personalized, and ideally, if we do this right, they're invisible. We just need to make it invisible. If we do our job, no one will know that we exist. It's a thankless job. All right. So, of all the things kind of coming right now, this is a really, really exciting time. I think FIDO2, as I said, is a really big deal. And the fact that we are going to have all these new kind of authentication wearables, I'm now seeing demos, proof of concepts, and in some cases, live deployments where passwordless is real. We've been talking about it for a long time. This is the year it happens. I'm convinced this is the year it happens. But it's more than that. It's really more than that. So this notion of wearable authenticators, biometrically enabled wearable authenticators, like the user experience in this is going to be really good. And we got to figure out how to make it easy to recover when we lose all of these tokens, if you will. But we'll figure that out. All right, so if identity is the new perimeter, obviously it's got to be strong. But strong and invisible, that's the magic. And we're going for magic here as an industry. Number 3, privacy and compliance. Is it a sandstorm or is it a firestorm? I guess it depends. If you're Facebook and you believe the future is private, I love that. But how about we do it before regulation grows teeth? So as an industry, we can do better. It used to be, I'll go way back, early ping, we used to joke that privacy had no business model. Turns out today there is a business model in privacy, and privacy is turning out to be good business. When it was anonymous by default, we've now changed it as an industry, been successful. Now it's identified by default. And in that world, those who respect us as consumers will get our business. And that's the way it should be. So there are companies making the right choices, focused on the right things. Privacy is the right thing. It's not just good business. It's the right thing to do. Okay? So, privacy. We're going to need to manage consent. That is a new thing. We're going to need to make sure that we govern the data about us correctly. We are stewards of the data of our consumers. And we need to do a good job at that. So these are the things as identity professionals we can focus on. Are you guys ready? Okay, good. Number 4, everything is getting smarter. We're going to make identity smarter at the same time. We're seeing significant growth in the use of AI. Clearly, it's inevitable. It will take time. This is a several-year journey, but we are going to make identity smart. So we will leverage sensors and all of these signals. We will share signals so that we can collectively, as an industry, protect our customers, protect our employees, protect our sensitive information. That is going to create great opportunity. It is also going to allow us to identify threats faster. It will allow us to personalize, and as I said, also detect. So we should be leveraging intelligence to create a better user experience, simultaneously make our infrastructure more secure. There's going to be a lot on this topic throughout the week. Number 5, this is the last one. We have disappearing perimeters. They mean less today than they did 5 years ago. Still important, but changing. And that's because the assets have left the building. We followed our devices off the network as users. Our applications are being migrated to a combination of private clouds and public clouds. And in this new world, the steel thread that holds this together is identity. And that's what we mean when we say identity is the new perimeter. It is also the new control plane that is enabling this notion of zero trust. We don't trust the network we're on because we don't control it. It's not that it's not trustworthy, we just don't control all of it. So how do we enable our mobile workforce in a highly distributed world to do business and stay secure? We do identity. That's why we're here. So this is also a really, really big deal. So the winners and losers, I think, will be defined largely by how you navigate some of these disruptions. And I do believe that every disruption creates kind of a concentration effect or a quickening, if you will, of winners and losers. So the innovation, think about innovation as reshuffling the game board. It's like the rules change. I thought I was playing by one set of rules, the whole game board gets reshuffled, and now you're playing by a different set of rules. There are certain things you can do to prepare. I think identity is going to be foundational. Maintaining agility in your identity infrastructure is going to be foundational. So lastly, in this changing environment, obviously, think of identity as the new oxygen. It's ubiquitous, it's invisible, and it's required. If we do it right, it is invisible. We've got to get this foundation right, and if we do, and if you do that for your organizations, you will ride the wave rather than get crushed by it. So again, in review, the disruption, speed of innovation, focus on standards, APIs, and multi-cloud. It's going to improve your velocity and your agility. With respect to customer experience, let's make it invisible. Best experience is no experience. You're going to build loyal customers. Every click you remove is going to create a happy customer. Privacy and compliance, we need to make sure we get consent and data governance correct for our companies. That's going to create better relationships. Privacy is now good business. People choose. Everything is becoming smarter. Let's focus on making our identity infrastructure smarter. It's going to create a better experience and also better security. And lastly, we have this disappearing perimeter. We are now focused in as an industry on how do we enable zero trust in our companies. That is a new security paradigm. Think about your identity foundation as the foundation of enabling that zero trust. So with that, it is my honor to welcome you to the 10th annual Identiverse. As an industry, we have an incredible opportunity and really an incredible responsibility to not just ourselves, but frankly, the entire world for the things that we are working on. You are changing the world day by day, and this is accelerating. The size of this room and the pace with which we are progressing as an industry is truly astonishing. So you have a larger role than I think you appreciate. And as a group, it's not about surviving, it's about thriving. So we need to get on top of these threats. These are happening. You guys see and experience that. I talk to you daily about your frustrations, about how can you move forward, and are you moving forward fast enough? And how can you lay the identity foundation in your companies that is going to allow your companies to thrive and become one of those big circles on that prior map? So have a great and wonderful week. Learn a lot. Take your energy pills. Drink a lot of water. It's going to be a wonderful week. And thank you very much for having me.